Hey everybody, Andy Nelson. So what is the process to get a trademark registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office? I'm going to quickly cover the procedure. So you are using that, this is assuming you're using a trademark, whether it's a logo, a word, words, slogan, something else that's really distinctive and connects your brand to consumers. You want to register that with the Patent and Trademark Office and get or take advantage of all those benefits that come with a federal registration. Well, how's it happen? Simply put, you apply for it. Whether you do it by yourself, if you have the time to learn how to do it, or you use a professional to do it, it is something that is applied for on basically online. It's an online process. There may be some remnants, and you can do it by paper still, but I don't know anybody who does that, and there's really no good reason to. So it's done online through the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Now, an online form or series, I guess, of windows is gone through, or you've traveled through them, and you apply for it. You got to put quite a bit of information in there about, who the applicant is, contact information, what the mark is. You have to submit a drawing, which, when it comes to words, is really just the letters, but otherwise it may be an upload of an image if it's a logo. If it's sound, there's other ways to submit what the mark is. Obviously, you got to submit an audio file, for example. And if it's some other unusual mark, there are different ways to submit a specimen of what that, or drawing rather is what they call it. Doesn't matter if it's audio, it's still called a drawing of what the mark is. You also have to submit a specimen showing how the mark is used in commerce. So, in short, it's got to be the mark in close association with the goods or services provided. So the USPTO, the Patent and Trademark Office, knows that you're using the mark, you're making a bona fide use of the mark in commerce. Now, once you apply for it, it takes about 3 months or so to get to a trademark examiner who then looks at it, makes sure that the application is in order, make sure there's no defects in the application, and checks the application against the Patent and Trademark Office, or basically the trademark database for pending applications and existing registrations to make sure there is nothing that would be a conflicting mark or application, something that would block you because it would lead to a likelihood of confusion as to source sponsorship or affiliation. And a few other things that the examiner looks for, but basically it goes to the examiner. If it gets by the examiner, it then goes into what's called publication, which means for 30 days, anybody who thinks they might be damaged if your application goes through the registration can object, although they have to go through a process and it's not cheap. So if someone's going to object, they're definitely invested and really think they're going to be damaged. Assuming you get through publication with no objections, the mark then goes to registration. So that takes shortest time, if there's no real back and forth with the trademark office, 7 or so months. 7 or so months, if I'm to average it out, because sometimes there's a little bit of a back and forth, maybe 7 to 9 months for your run-of-the-mill application with no major obstacles. There's little pieces in between, but that is the general process to apply for and obtain a federally registered trademark for a trademark that you are already using at the time of application. If you haven't used it yet and you need to reserve it, that's a little bit different process. I will cover that in another video. If you have any questions about this video, drop a comment, shoot me a note, and if you think somebody would benefit from the content of this video, please feel free to share it. Until next time, have a great one. Bye-bye.